Hello everyone, welcome to another video, and in this today, I'll be going through the most hated fighters of 2023. I will rank them 1 through 5, top 5 in order, starting with number 5 down to number 1, and giving my take and my opinion to why these fighters were hated so much this year. So let's not waste any more time and let's dive right into the top 5 most hated fighters of 2023. So here's my top 5 list. It's kind of tacky, so bear with me, but I will be pulling off each fighter from the side here and putting them in their respective categories. Starting off with at number 5, we have Aljamain Sterling. He's still hated, man. People still very much dislike Aljo in 2023. Everything that he did, I think in 2021, 2022, when he fought Peter Yan the second time, or the first time, I'm sorry, with the knee, people still despise this man absolutely for, I think now, not much a severe or credible reason. I understand you can definitely dislike Aljo for how he handled the Petr Yan fight, but I think after that, he kind of redeemed himself, but people haven't redeemed him like I have. People have still very much have a lot of hate for Aljamain Sterling right now. They don't like him. Whenever he talks on the microphone, it's immediate boos. Everywhere he goes, it's boos. Every single press conference, it's massive boos. Nobody likes Aljo. It sucks now because I think that he has been an active champion when he was champion, and I thought that he was finding ways to at least try to promote his fights and be a personality, and he played into this villain role, which I think is very respectable, to say the least. Most of these fighters in press conferences, they don't really say much of anything, and if they do, it's can't wait till Saturday night, man. It's that classic fighter saying that every fighter says. It's boring, it's no personality, it's just lame, and overall it's not entertaining at all. But Aljo would come into these press conferences, he would play the villain role, he would hype up the boos, he would scream, he would yell. The whole O'Malley press conference was him hyping up that press conference while O'Malley was sitting there doing absolutely nothing. That entire press conference was carried by Aljamain Sterling. But to say the least, people still hate him, and overall it's not my opinion that matters the most, it's the overall opinion of Aljo, and I think overall people very much dislike him still and still very much hate him for that Petr Yan performance. If you want to put somebody else here at number 5, you could probably put Sean O'Malley, because people still hate the fact that he has no personality, as well as the fact that his wife gets by other dudes, so people still like to criticize him for that. But I think overall, nobody receives as much or as many boos as Aljamain Sterling does in the UFC right now. But it has been years since he last really got that major heat, but I think it still has carried over into 2023 for the most part. But moving on to number 4, we have Balam Muhammad. Now, he's somewhat in a similar boat as Aljo. Like, they don't really deserve the hate that they get, but people just don't want to see Belal succeed at all. I understand his fight style is boring, his personality is boring, everything about Balam Muhammad is pretty much boring, but that's pretty much it, bro. People hate him because he's boring. Just overall, people pretty much just hate him, and I understand why. I mean, he's just not really entertaining at all. Everything about him, again, is boring, and he's not really somebody who is going to sell pay-per-views in the future. If him and Leon do fight, I don't see them really selling much of anything, especially after Leon had that performance against Colby Covington, which was probably the most boring title fight of the year. Just overall, there isn't much of a substance to Belal Muhammad besides his win streak, and people are kind of coming around to him a little bit more. I probably should put him at number 5 instead of Aljo. People are kind of coming around to Belal, and just, they see that he deserves a title shot next. But I think people are kind of like, no, this guy is a bit annoying. Every time he talks, it's just a snooze fest. Every time he even speaks out of his mouth, it puts me to sleep. When he goes into the octagon afterwards, it puts everybody to sleep. There's nothing really that fun about Balam Muhammad, let's be honest here. And I definitely think that kind of reflects on him as a whole. And people just don't like him entirely, and I understand why. But moving on to number 3, we have Merab Dvalishvili. Take your title shot, man, please. Who cares? Aljo is now fighting Cater, so now you have to get your title shot. There's no way you don't fight for a title next against O'Malley. And guess what? He isn't, because guess what? It's Chito Vera versus O'Malley. So, I mean, after that fight happens, it has to be Merab. And he's not fighting right now, which is a Big L. It's a massive L right now. It's by far the most annoying thing right now in the UFC that Merab is not fighting for the belt. He was complacent with letting Aljo supersede him and get another rematch against O'Malley when he has the biggest claim to that bantamweight belt right now. There's nobody else at bantamweight who is more deserving than a title shot than Merab Dvalishvili, and he is willing to sit there and say, "No, Aljo, you can get the title shot, man. You can have it, not me. I don't want it." Like, do you even want to be a champion? Do you want to make millions? Do you want to have a legacy? Do you want any of these things, Merab? Get your title shot. And him just being so willing to let Aljo have it over him is so annoying. I think everybody hates this about Merab Dvalishvili. As you can probably tell, I very much dislike it. I hate it, in fact, that he is just willing to just not fight for the belt. He's just willing to not take his title shot because he is holding a friendship above his own life, his own legacy. I made a whole video about this, so go check that out if you want to. But it's just ridiculous, Merab. Just take your title shot, man. And I think the majority of people agree with me here. This guy is just... he's a simp for Aljo, and being a simp right now has completely just derailed his career. I mean, if he just didn't say anything about Aljo, if he didn't care about his friendship and just went for that title shot, then there would be no harm, no foul. There'd be no issue with Merab. But since he is so hell-bent on prioritizing his friendship over his own legacy, it has really rubbed people the wrong way, especially me. And that definitely earns him a spot on the Kindle MMA tier list of top 5 most hated fighters in the UFC of 2023. But yeah, whatever. That's pretty much it for Merab. That's pretty much all he's done. He beat Piotr Jan, which was a pretty hateable fence, let's be honest here. The way he dismantled Jan was not fun to watch in the slightest bit, but I can't really fault him for that. I think most people can't really fault him for that. Winning a fight by dominance is just something you just do in the UFC. It just happens. But he's also pretty boring. Like, there's no personality to him as well. Definitely very much cringe in that aspect. But moving on to number 2, we have Israel Adesanya. You could have put him at 1, but I put him at number 2. But everything this year has pretty much gone wrong for Adesanya besides him sparking out Pereira in that first or second round in their rematch. I mean, I've made a ton of videos about Israel Adesanya this year. It started off with the dog situation. If you don't know about that, he pretty much touches his dog in very weird ways. That was a whole big ordeal. He was already pretty boring, and he was having some really iffy performances, and he wasn't too exciting, and his personality was starting to get not over with the fans anymore. I think people were starting to dislike his personality and the way he was acting outside of the octagon. But then the dog stuff came out, and then that kind of sparked more hatred towards Adesanya. And then after that, guess what? He gets a DUI, driving under the influence. After his Pereira win, he cannot get a single W this year in every single aspect of life. I think him and his girlfriend got into a whole beef this year as well. There really wasn't any credible information in regards to that. But after that, then he goes and he gets into this whole dog situation where everybody's calling him out for it. Then gets absolutely whooped by Sean Strickland, gets his head pieced in, gets dropped in the first round, and then pieced up and embarrassed for the next 4 rounds. Absolutely horrific performance from Adesanya. Gets schooled over 5 rounds by Sean Strickland, of all people, who he was heavily favored to win against, but whatever, massive L. But after that, he gets a DUI, a Dewey, and now he's pretty much forced to sit out and take some time off because he can't handle it. His ego has gotten to a point where it's at an all-time low, and Adesanya right now is definitely one of the more hated fighters in the UFC of 2023. He's not number 1 this year, even though he could be number 1, but there's one guy who supersedes him, who made a crazy end of the year comeback to be the most hated fighter of 2023, and that is Ian Garry. Ian Garry, I don't feel bad, man. I do not feel bad. If you don't know about Ian Garry, you have been living under a rock for the past 6 months or 3 months, whatever. You've been living under a rock for a very long time now. Ian Garry has been absolutely heinous this year. It really kind of stems from that whole Neil Magny press conference. It kind of trickled into the Jeff Neal mugshot t-shirt, which kind of got some notoriety, but it wasn't too crazy. But I think the Neil Magny at the press conference, when they had the back and forth, is what really set him apart from all these other fighters in this tier list. This guy was calling out Neil Magny for hurting his child when it just wasn't the case. He was taking things out of proportion. He was being a very big virtue signaler. He just overall wasn't being a very honorable person towards Neil Magny, and that definitely rubbed people the wrong way. I mean, throughout that entire press conference, completely shutting down Neil Magny and not letting him speak was the most deplorable thing that he has done this year. I don't care about his wife right now. Just overall with Neil Magny, that was extremely low. It was taken out of proportion. It wasn't anything that was to be mad about. Like, there was absolutely nothing there for Ian Garry to truly grab at, and he still did it anyways, and he took it and he stretched it out and basically called Neil Magny a piece of shit person who is now suffering the repercussions of this, because I think that he now is going through a custody battle with his wife over his kids now, and he might lose his kids because of Ian Garry. This guy has pretty much ruined a guy's entire life, messed up a guy's entire family situation for some pity points, some plus points for calling out child abuse. Like, it's nothing crazy, bro. Just complete degenerate behavior. And then after that, when the whole wife thing came up, when people were criticizing him and his wife or whatever, calling her a wag or whatever, he threatens to sue people. He threatened to sue Sean Strickland about making comments about his wife's situation. Like, that to me is just complete soy boy behavior, Ian Garry, and this definitely puts him at number one for the most hated fighter of 2023. He has made himself almost irredeemable right now. And I think the only way he can redeem himself in this situation is by just dumping his wife, just completely saying, no, we're done. I'm getting a divorce. It's over. That's the only way that I think Ian Garry can come back from this. But I think for the rest of his career, he's going to be a hated fighter in the UFC. I think he will get boos for the rest of his career, no matter how good he is, no matter what happens in the future. I don't care if he goes out there and he sparks Edwards out cold in the first round, an absolute amazing performance. He will still be booed. He will still be hated for the rest of his career, and he has earned it for the way that he has acted throughout this past, month, 2 months. Just complete stupid behavior, but this is my list, 1 through 5. The top 5 most hated fighters of 2023. If you agree or disagree, let me know your opinion down below in the comment section about who your most hated fighter of 2023 is. But that is the video for today. I'm out here. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for notifications. Peace.